yeah, I think if a strategic reserve was announced at some point next year, we're going we're on a very quick path to 500K.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think that's a ridiculous thing to say.
Today's episode is brought to you by Akash Network, the world's premier decentralized compute marketplace. Check out Akash to buy and sell computing resources securely and efficiently. Purpose-built for public utility at akash.network. Welcome, everybody, into another episode of Coinage as we are tackling the best ways to play this crypto boom as we have kind of bounced around this $100,000 level for Bitcoin. A lot of opportunities out there, and a lot of them are shifting as we speak. So very excited to welcome back onto Coinage one of the smartest crypto analysts in the entire space, Sean Farrell, the head of digital asset strategy at Fundstrat, joining us once again. Sean, good to see you, man.
Zach, great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, excited to have you back on because as we've noted, the last few times we've had you on, back in January at the beginning of the year, you were saying Bitcoin hits 115K in 2024. We are still, again, within, I think, just a few percentage points of getting there. We'll see how the year shapes up. But per usual, looking out over the next few months, I think it is pretty interesting because some people might say, look, we're having these liquidations left and right for altcoins, everything beyond Bitcoin. Volatility is up. We've also advanced quite a bit on some of these Dino coins, Ripple, Stellar, Cardano, up like 300%. Some people might look at that and say, look, we've run too far too fast. Froth galore. But yet, we're still below your 115 price target to wrap up the year. So I'm curious where Sean Farrell's head's at in terms of how much longer this cycle has, what people should be thinking as they might, look to allocate over the next couple months.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with just cycle indicators. Just to nip it in the bud, I don't think that we are at or super close to a cycle top. I think a lot of our indicators around, cyclical tops, we're still pretty far from things like, MVRV, Z-score, that normally, when that gets above 5, 6, that's when, that's indication you want to take some risk off the table from a cycle perspective. We still have PMIs that, at least on the manufacturing side of things, are below 50, but moving higher when PMIs start to get into more expansionary territory. That's a good indication that from a macro perspective, the cycle is, starting to get a bit toppy. I think just looking at how the causal factors and flows into crypto, not a lot of this price appreciation thus far has been driven by borrowed capital. So last cycle we had a lot of leverage, a lot of unhealthy leverage, a lot of perhaps definitely illegal leverage, and that was a pretty solid indicator that things were getting overheated. And really, there isn't, save for funding rates blowing out intermittently, there's not a lot of borrow in the market right now, and flows are still strong. And we kind of looked at the froth because, like looking at XRP starting to rip and all of these Dino coins and having friends and family start to text me about what to buy, that's a
those are top signals galore. Those are problems. I've had like 10 maybe convos of people saying, "What do I buy?" And that scares me a little bit.
Of course. But you pair that with expansive breadth and leverage inclining, increasing, but not to the levels we saw last cycle. Certainly does make your antenna go up, but flows have still been pretty consistent. Spot volumes have been, on the, elevated and continuing to rise on the whole. Stablecoin creations still are robust. ETF flows have not slowed. In fact, they've actually sped up for ETH, if you want to talk about that later.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not seeing a lot of reasons to turn overly bearish from a macro perspective. I think there's been a bit of a inflationary scare over the past couple of weeks, pre NFP and pre CPI. That's basically what we saw on Monday and Tuesday is just broad macro de-risking ahead of CPI. But a lot of
Yeah.
the macro data that I'm looking at is really in what I would consider, Goldilocks territory, which, is ultimately pretty constructive for crypto
Agreed.
assets.
Yeah, that was kind of my take too, in terms of, CPI coming in line, inflation coming in line with where everyone's expectations were, and I think that's kind of what you'd want to see ahead of next week's final rate cut decision for Jay Powell and the Fed. Just kind of given, some of the incoming volatility, shall we say, of a new administration, the way that Trump feels about Chair Powell. But I mean, when you look at everything else, the only thing that we were talking about, we had Travis Kling on the show yesterday, which people can check out that full interview on our YouTube page, but one of the things from Glassnode was looking at kind of this percentage of longer term holders. And that is one thing that might have a little bit of a turnover right now in terms of, it used to be, I think, longer term holders over 7 years, now under 50% of the Bitcoin supply. That was down from 60% earlier this year. That's maybe one of the cycle indicators, Sean, when you think about maybe longer term holders dumping at the top. Not the case for Michael Saylor, though, and some of these other huge players. But I guess if I can take anything away from what you just said, it sounds like still more room to run, even though you are getting texts from friends and family about crypto suggestions and calls. Still much more to go here in terms of where Bitcoin goes.
I think so. And look, there's going to be drawdowns in between, and I'm still formulating my views on next year. But I do think we probably do top out at some point next year. When that is, I'm still uncertain. But I do not think that this 100K level is the top, and that is interesting to note, the long-term holders unloading some of their stack onto newcomers. But that happens every cycle, and if you are a long-term holder that bought Bitcoin at 15K, I think it's pragmatic to de-risk a bit and sell into strength. And I also think it's worthy to consider a lot of the on-chain metrics around Coinages this cycle are a bit noisy. I haven't dug into it for a couple months. I probably should spend some time with it, but we had things like the ETFs launch and GBTC, unlock, and a lot of those coins were acquired a very long time ago, and so they're very old coins. And when those move on chain, and presumably there was a lot of movement on chain from that, that's going to skew a lot of the Coinage metrics. And so again, I have to dig in and spend some time on that, but I think that's something interesting to consider.
Coinage metrics, by the way, to be clear, not Coinage.
Right.
Our show here, very different things. But no, Sean, when you talk about maybe, I guess, level set, right? Because there are some people who are coming in new, fresh. Maybe they haven't been in crypto for the last few years. And you got people who have been here, like you and I, forever. And now you're looking at, okay, what are the next big opportunities here? Because I don't know about you, but certainly Ripple was not on my list of big opportunities here, and missed the 300% rally over the last month on that one. And when you look at some of the other opportunities, I understand that you guys just added ETH to the basket, and that's an interesting one because almost everybody probably also over the last month may have missed that relative outperformance from ETH over Bitcoin. What are you watching there in terms of saying, I feel confident enough now that maybe the upside is larger in ETH than some of these other things?
Yeah, well, first, to your point about Ripple, if you want to hear, a painful coin fashion, I wrote a note recommending Ripple as an election trade, and back in mid-October, I think, and just didn't put it on. So,
but why not, though? I guess that's the big question.
Because, hey, look, we did well. I did well. Our FS Insight family did well, and when the Fundstrat and FS Insight family does well, I'm happy. And look, I was long other stuff that perhaps didn't keep pace with Ripple, but did well also. So no sleep loss here. But so talking about ETH, backing up, and I'm not sure if we talked about this on the show, but we've been underweight ETH for quite some time, and our view on ETH is that there are obviously messaging issues around ETH as it pertains to how they communicate their message to crypto native community, but fundamentally, I think the issue is that the marginal buyer for Ethereum right now is TradFi. ETH is large; it's almost $500 billion in market cap, give or take, and it is integrated with TradFi. It has CME futures. It has ETFs now, and because of its size, it takes a lot of liquidity to move it in a way that would produce outsized gains for a lot of these crypto native funds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the you just had most of crypto native capital just kind of exit and not pay attention to ETH this cycle. Obviously there was also the resurgence of a lot of these high throughput chains. Solana obviously takes the cake as a leader in that space, but you had like things like Sui, Aptos, other high throughput competitors that garnered a lot of the attention as it pertains to capital going into smart contract platforms from crypto capital. But yeah, coming back to ETH, what things we were looking for, if you think about how ETH is positioned for TradFi, it's they obviously trade Bitcoin, right? And that's its own macro asset. It's digital gold. I think we're pretty well acquainted with how that trades and how TradFi looks at it. But ETH, I think is viewed differently through conversations with crypto curious TradFi market participants. I think they really view it as this unprofitable tech stock. And so something we were looking for, first things first, is indicators that we were seeing an expansion of breadth within the equity market, and some indications that small cap tech, unprofitable tech stocks would start outperforming the broader indices. And I think you just had the chart up there, but if you look at this ETF, it's the tickers.
Yeah. The chart kind of showing a little bit of an outbreak too. I mean, we talked about ETH BTC in the long-term downtrend. And I think this is kind of what you're speaking to in terms of, a little bit of a resurgence at the bottom right of that chart. And also, I think to the other question here in terms of TradFi players, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Sean, but there's a couple different things to talk about in terms of open interest exploding, as you have in your deck here, but also just kind of inflows from the ETFs. I'm pretty sure that over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a record amount of inflows into the ETH ETFs, even more so than when they first listed.
Yeah, so it's all kind of related. I think there is a lot of net long buying of the Bitcoin ETFs. I think there are a lot of long-term holder capital that's going into that, from RIAs, asset managers, et cetera, that are just kind of creating a portfolio, integrating Bitcoin into that, and rebalancing as time goes on. I'm not sure how much of that type of buying is going into ETH. I do think a lot of it is probably centered around the basis trade, but if you're managing a crypto portfolio, I'm not sure it makes much of a difference. So we have seen ETH ETF flows tick a lot higher. This chart's a little stale, but they've been rather impressive, especially compared to Bitcoin ETF flows, which have also continued to be solid, but just from a rate of change basis, ETH ETF flows have been solid. And this goes part and parcel with the CME open interest starting to outpace Bitcoin CME open interest. We have seen CME basis for ETH get up to north of 20%. And back around Thanksgiving, we saw that basis on the CME get to north of 20%, while Bitcoin CME basis was around, I think, 12-13%, maybe 14%. It was a significant spread, and that was a sign to us that people were putting on leverage, going along ETH via CME futures, and I think a pretty positive indicator that perhaps we have seen the a longer term bottom in ETH BTC.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, Sean, but I was also, it may have been before your guys' strategy note, but it was also something I came out to and said, look, I think we might have found a bottom here relative to some other things in the space. And, it's done well since then, but not nearly as well. And I think both of you, both yourself and myself, would be in the same camp, even though we both think things might turn around here. Still pretty shocking in terms of how much the weakness has been for ETH over 2024. I think your price target, I can't remember what it was for year end, but we're definitely farther off of that one than we are for Bitcoin. I think
Oh
around
yeah,
6K or something, 6 to
yeah.
7.
The range, yeah, that approximately, I believe.
And so I guess, when we talk about maybe how confident you are, we're both in the same camp now if you're adding it to your portfolio, but I guess how confident you are in the catch-up trade now. If you put all those things together over the next couple months, because it never topped its old all-time high. And
Hmm.
so if that were to happen, you got a lot of people, I talked to a lot of people in the ETH camp saying, look out, because if that happens, shit's going to really explode. I don't know how strong I believe that, but clearly I think, a lot of people are hoping that would happen. So what's your take in general in terms of maybe if we are turning a corner on ETH, how strong of a turn could that look like?
First of all, Zach, I did not see that, but congratulations. You should toot your horn. Um, I Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the prospects. I mean, ETH BTC has drawn down the past couple of days just due to macro conditions, but that is in concert with you know small caps and duration sensitive assets just haven't fared well the past couple of trading days, and so I think post CPI today, if it's game on, and we get Bitcoin back above 100K, I like the odds of ETH resuming its catch up trade through year end and perhaps into January. Um, I think seasonality kind of is a tailwind for ETH over the next couple of months as well. And so yeah, I mean, I like the prospects of increasing your relative weight to ETH from perhaps underweight to maybe equal weight
Yeah.
right now.
Well, I mean, the Coinage DAO has its entire treasury right now in ETH. So this is always something that is important to check in on just because it's kind of our lifeblood for the time being.
All right.
But in terms of, I will give myself props here because it is Texas. I think I have my tweet up here. This is back in November 16th. So this is where it was, it's proof on screen. But Sean, I guess, when you put all those things together, right? I don't know if you feel the same way that I do in terms of when people are asking for advice or what to kind of look at, you kind of also do want to give them maybe potentially, I don't want to use the term top signals again, but maybe potentially like, hey, check in on this, or if you run up X%, pocket that. Not financial advice, but what's kind of, I guess, the thing that you're watching in terms of, I know you said we're not there yet. How do you know when we're getting close to the top?
Yeah, I think it's when things I'm looking at on a day-to-day basis, tactical basis. Um, if I start to see things like stablecoin creations start to slow, if you look at, say, um, some of it is art, some of it is science, but say like the 7-day moving average of, stablecoin market cap growth starts to tick into negative territory. If we start to see ETF flows slow or dip into negative territory, if spot volumes start to roll over, and a very high signal tactical indicator that like to look at is the Coinbase premium. So
Mm-hmm.
this is just the spread of Bitcoin on Coinbase relative to Binance, and it's crypto is a global asset, but it's very rare that you have a sustained bull market in which a lion's share of the demand for crypto is not coming from U.S. investors, and obviously Coinbase is the preferred venue for trading crypto in the U.S., at least compliantly,
Yeah.
and so if you have an incrementally larger demand in for Bitcoin on Coinbase, that implies that the market is healthy and there's strong demand from U.S. investors, and I think we saw this back in March that moved from a rather considerable premium to a rather conclusive discount pretty much right after the local top in March,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think if that moves into negative territory and stays there, and you see it stay there for, say, a couple of trading days, that's probably a good time to take off risk.
Well, I think it's just kind of, again, anyone can kind of be a bull when you're sitting at all-time highs. I give you a lot of credit for kind of coming on the show earlier on when we were looking pretty dark there in like the 30s or 40s and not entirely sure what the year was going to look like, and doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on your call to hit 100,000 this year, which, again, we'll see where we end up on the year. But I think one of the other things that I need to give you props for was this idea of, look, what's beyond Bitcoin and ETH? You've talked a lot about Solana, and particularly right now, Radium being one of your calls in terms of meme coins not going away, the craze around meme coins not going away, and maybe you don't want to get your hands dirty and go full trenches, but you do like the idea of owning the picks and shovels because you added Radium, what was it, a couple months ago, in terms of focusing on this one and finding a little bit of a dip to buy. That seems like it's panned out pretty well when we look at where that's gone since that call, but do you continue to lean into that one?
Yeah, I still like this as so yeah, just for context, back in October, I think it was. I would have to look up the exact date, but we went long the casino stack, we called it, and so I think everybody's pretty aware of the meme coin craze and all of the on-chain activity that's taken place on Solana, and we kind of framed Solana as this on-chain Vegas. And if you want to, if you don't, if you don't want to be in the trenches, finding the next fart coin, um, you, but you still want to monetize this trend that isn't going to, it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down anytime soon. You want to own the picks and shovels of that on-chain Vegas, and so to us, the casino stack was Sol, which is the currency that is used in this Vegas. You have Jito, which is the liquid staking provider plus MEV solution provider that kind of powers a lot of what happens in this Vegas and receives a lot of fees as a result. And Radium, which is kind of like the preferred casino, right? This is where a lot of the trading happens. They have an integration with Pump.Fun, which has been a huge tailwind for volumes on Radium and for the Radium token.
Yeah.
And
It's been super
and,
easy. It's like
Bonk,
super easy
Bonk
to
is our
switch.
preferred meme coin if you wanted to actually own a blackjack game.
Yes, you've talked about Bonk a bit too, and there are certainly people who got that through the airdrop that have enjoyed this year in the rally there. And it's super easy to use in terms of Radium and the Pump.Fun metrics. But I guess my pushback and my question here, Sean, would be looking at it. I think it's up 666%, an ominous number, over the last year. And I guess the idea there being you'd have to expect the meme coin craze to continue to still like Radium, or dare I say, there are some other mechanics there to consider when it comes to the way that they burn tokens or allow fees to kind of be distributed back to the token. I mean, what's the idea in terms of enjoying the name still after it's run so high?
Yeah, so I mean, it still commands 50% market share of DEX volumes on on Solana. I think yesterday was pretty telling, the recovery that Radium showed. I think whenever there's forced sellers in the market, you have forced liquidations. You see you see where buyers prefer to step in to buy blood, and Radium has been a outperformer over the past 24 or 48 hours on pretty high volumes, and so I think there is some market conviction around this name. And look, Uniswap's trading at 10.2 billion fully diluted, I think. I'm looking at it now. Or that's not fully diluted. They're trading at a circulating market cap of 10.2. Radium's still at 1.5. So, obviously Uniswap has
a lot of room to run by that metric, then I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you alluded to, they do have favorable tokenomics. At least for token holders, there is a portion of fees that goes towards buying and burning the Radium token. And so, obviously, if there's a bit of a flywheel effect there, if activity starts to increase, volume start to increase, protocol fees increase, then supply concurrently decreases, and I think that is obviously a huge positive for the token. So I think it's probably not a 10x anymore from here, but
Mm-hmm.
still I think is a good place to achieve Solana beta, along with the other
Well,
names in that basket.
yeah, it's one of those things where right now I think anytime you get into, I guess it'd be fair to call this kind of the third quarter of the cycle this time. At least that's the way that I'm looking at it. And there are opportunities out there. Is that some people sometimes at this stage of the game get a little greedy in terms of maybe chasing things that already have run up and expect 10x. So I think it's helpful to maybe set expectations for what to expect out of the remaining pieces of the game. But I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's the last question, Sean, is kind of the takeaways for everyone listening to kind of right size or think about what's left. Obviously, we're closing out the year. You gave us the suggestion of having Helium on the show for our Crypto Project of the Year celebration. We actually did have them on, so I encourage everyone to check out that interview as
Nice.
well to dig into Helium a little bit as we have advanced some of this top. I think our community has dubbed these the top projects in crypto. It's been really fun to have, all the founders on, almost all the founders on, to talk about what they've been able to do this year. So, Sean, I mean, I guess, what's the main takeaway to wrap up the year? This will probably be the last time we have you on in 2024. And props to you, by the way, as a lot of people have been giving you props for being right this year and coming on shows like this, despite the fact that you are physically going through recovery right now.
Yeah.
Nothing can hold Sean Farrell down. But
Hey man,
what's
I
the
got
main
2 hits.
takeaway? Yes, we got two.
Yeah, look, main takeaway, I think the Fed is still dovish. The path of rates is lower. Inflation, you can make a bet on it, maybe being sticky, but the path is still lower. Growth is solid, and as we saw in the last manufacturing PMI is starting to expand on the margin. So you have this real nice Goldilocks setup, and I think importantly, I mean, we just had a complete 180 from a regulatory perspective, and I know that everybody has been talking about it, and that it's perhaps the topic has been beaten to a pulp, but um, now
Is
we're
that
going
why
to
it
get
makes it so hard, by the
into
way? Just to jump on that, is that why it makes it
yeah,
so hard for you to do your job? Because we had Travis on yesterday and saying, look, if we get a Bitcoin strategic reserve, Bitcoin price target immediately jumps to 300,000 because there's no way to
yeah.
really
No, I
figure out
mean
when that'll
we're
happen.
that you add a zero to every price target. It's certainly you need to factor it into your some non-zero probability into one's analysis. But of course, you can't go out with a price target range of 100,000 to 1 million. But yeah, I think if a strategic reserve was announced at some point next year, it's yeah, we're going we're on a very quick path to 500K.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay. So
yeah,
that's
I
even
mean,
that's even
I
higher.
think that I, I don't think that's a ridiculous thing to say. But yeah, look, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity comes out of it. Obviously, there's been a lot promised, so there's going to be risks around things not transpiring as fast or to the exact degree that everyone expects. I think that's something that I need to get a handle on over the next few weeks in terms of a feel for what the market is expecting from Congress. I think the strategic reserve. I actually think that the market on the whole has that. I don't think there's too much BSR price into Bitcoin right now. I think it's I don't know what the latest poly market is, but it's
I think it's
definitely sub 50.
25% that it happens in the first 100 days or so, I think is the idea.
Yeah, first 100 days, I'm probably taking the over there. But probability wise, that feels right. Um, directionally, maybe a
Hmm.
little lower than that. Just it's more about priorities. I don't know if it's going to be prioritized. That's all.
It's the big
But
question.
look,
And I guess
there's
we'll
also
know in
like
January.
there's also market structure and stablecoin bills that people are going to want to see when that when that market structure bill starts to really look like it's going to pass. I think you're going to have things like some of these fundamentally undervalued utility tokens, so to speak, start to benefit from that. Perhaps a narrative forms around it, and you start to
Yeah.
get more, this stream of fee switches that projects can now share, value accrual with their token holders. So that's
It's
going to
a
be very
good
interesting. You have things like DPIN, like Helium that has incredible traction, be able to, really connect with a new cohort of investors that is coming into this industry now, given the regulatory outlook,
yeah.
and speak to them about these transformative protocols that I think are delivering fundamental value to in a non-financial way.
Yeah, it's a good full circle moment for us here too on Coinage because, as I was saying, super appreciative of you spending your time coming on Coinage. Obviously, we've known each other since my Yahoo days, and you still come on this show, though it is not Yahoo in terms of distribution anymore. Though, well, we have guests like you on, it's even more accurate. And so I thank you for coming on, and to your point in terms of giving some of that back. You're also a Coinage NFT holder. Very exciting to see as people vote, becoming eligible, going through the steps, becoming actual DAO members using their NFT to become eligible for patronage dividends as we wrap up our year. So a reminder for everyone watching to use their NFT to go through that and to vote, to be active, considered active. It only takes 3 votes in terms of voting for our crypto project of the year to be an active member, and then you'll earn patronage dividends. So it's very exciting to kind of be on the forefront of that as a US-based NFT project, the first, I hope, at the end of the year to pay out patronage dividends to everybody. But Sean, Happy New Year, man. Happy holidays. Quick recovery to you. Thanks again for coming on as many times as you have this year, and thanks again for being right and giving great advice to all of our viewers, man.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate having me on. Happy holidays. Hope to do this again soon.
Yeah, and we'll keep our bated breath there for the next big 2025 price target, and hopefully have you back on in January per usual to kick off the year with some great insights from Sean Farrell and the rest of Fundstrat. For Sean, for myself, for everybody here at Coinage, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Coinage. You can check out all the latest headlines in Web3 at coinage.media. Enjoy it to co-own this with us. We'll see you again soon.